So hi, it's Deborah Carter here from New Tech Kids. I am talking with a very exciting guest today for our Preparation Tech interview series. As you may know, Preparation Tech is an interview series where I talk to technologists and people, interesting people doing interesting things at the intersection of technology in different fields. Today, I am so privileged to be speaking with Natalie Raffoul, who is one of Canada's top IP and patent lawyers. And we teach a lot of kids about computer science and robotics, and often these kids are really interested in the ethical considerations and also policies related to technology. So hence I found Natalie. This is interesting. I don't know her personally. Nobody introduced us. I did research and I found her, and I found a very interesting person. So let's hand it over to Natalie to tell us what you do and why it matters.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to say, first of all, Deborah, I think what you're doing with New Tech Kids is fantastic. And I only think that, I only wish that when I was a young person, getting in and focused on science as a young person, that I had the benefit of being able to hear about all these exciting careers in science and all these trajectories you can take out of science and engineering. It's such a great foundational block. So it's really great to see what you're doing. And as soon as we connected, I just wanted to know more and see more and certainly participate. So thank you for having me.
Great. So tell us what you do.
Yeah, so a little bit what I do. So my background, to explain what I do, is to sort of talk a little bit about my background. So I have an electrical engineering background. So I studied an undergraduate degree and then became what we call a patent agent, which in some jurisdictions is known as a patent attorney. And then following that, went to law school, and I'm also a lawyer in Canada, called to the bar in Ontario. So I am an IP lawyer with a strong specialty in a patent focus, with again a strong focus on what I would say the high tech side. So that kind of spans the gamut, really. From, we sort of have this joke in the patent world, there are folks that deal with the wet science stuff, so the goopy gooey stuff, and then there's the folks that deal with the hard science stuff. And so anything that doesn't smell or stink or whatever, that's kind of my domain. And so it's a lot of, I'm working a lot with a lot of software these days, focusing on patenting software. Many will be interested to know that even business methods can be patentable, especially those that are implemented in a computer. And so there are the sort of the outskirts of things that we're patenting, doing a lot of work in AI now, and artificial intelligence, and blockchain. Cybersecurity is a really hot field as well too. So it's migrated over the last 20 years that I've been in the field. I used to do a lot of work in the telecommunications space as a young sort of patent agent in training out of engineering. I worked a lot with some large telecommunication companies. I actually summered with Nortel Networks, which for some of us oldies would remember that company. But so my specialty was in telecommunication, but that's of course evolved now, and I do a lot more in the last I'd say 5 years, is just a lot of these cutting edge technologies. And I run a law practice and a patent agency, so I'm the managing partner of a firm called Brion Raffoul. And so we have a group of really great professionals here with technical backgrounds that advise innovative companies on how to best protect their inventions over a long continuum. So we work with companies, we've been working with companies for some of them for close to decades now, and helping them protect all of their great ideas and really remain very competitive. So it's exciting.
Why does your work matter? Why would you say that it's so important that the world has good patent and IP lawyers?
That's a great question. There's so many reasons why you want to seek IP protection, and particularly for startups. So a lot of countries now really focus on how do we get more entrepreneurialism out there? How do we create more startups? How do we really help entrepreneurs? And one of the keys to that, of course, is always access to funding, right? And part of that is when investors are, for example, looking at a great new idea, they are thinking about their investment long term. And so one of the important factors to that is, are you going to be able to lock down the marketplace? You're a young, small company, you've got these great ideas. how are you going to prevent a bigger competitor from coming in and taking advantage of that idea and getting to market maybe much faster than you? So if you're a small software company or you're a small biotech company and you don't have any protection on that, you're going to be very challenged in the marketplace to accelerate. And that's also going to be, something that an investor is going to look at and say, well, without any protection here, how do I know that you're going to be able to secure yourself in the marketplace? So IP protection is very important. It's not always about patents, though. There are different forms of IP protection. So there's copyright, there are industrial designs, which I'm always talking about. So design patents, design protection, which can be very important, and contracts. So the types of contracts that our small, young, mid-sized companies sign can have a real impact. So IP protection is very important in terms of helping companies scale their business, gain a nice foothold in terms of the marketplace, and be able to keep competitors at bay. So it is a really important tool. It adds value to your balance sheet. That's the other thing too, is that when you're trying to go out there and seek investment by having IP rights, we know, for example, that a company that has a registered patent or a trademark is going to be valued 4 times more on average than a company that doesn't have any IP rights, so hasn't actually registered for anything. So when you think about it from that point of view, if you're a young company, it's really something that will add value to your balance sheet.
Really interesting. I'm listening to you talking. How did you get started? Where did Natalie Raffoul come from? Take us back to your childhood. Tell us how you evolved to be the professional you are today.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So always very interested in math and science, always excelled in those subjects. I had a family on my family side. There are a number of engineers in my family, so had a number of role models, a lot of male engineers, though there weren't any female engineers. But from a very young age, my father was really into gadgets, and I was the eldest, so I used to sit a lot in his lap and look at gadgets too. I was programming from a young age. I had a little Coco Tandy and was creating big games for myself. So I always had an interest in that, and I even right down to my parents would try to lock me out of the TV, and I would figure out how to work the circuit breakers or the fuse box and get that TV up and running again. So I just had a fascination with how things worked from a very young age, and had even fascinations. Maybe I got into electrical engineering. I thought maybe I'd become a spy or something, and learn how bombs work, just to kind of, that's an extreme example, of course. But I always, I had a real fascination with how things worked, and so that kind of spurred that whole interest in getting into engineering. And then once I got into engineering, one of the things I discovered, I had some summer jobs in, I worked at Nortel, and I realized that, a lot of times engineers will end up working on the same product for a very long time. And so in spending some time, it's great to get experience working for companies, because you start to realize your personality type, and your skill sets. Where is that going to best put you, and what would be the best place for you to be? And so I realized I had really good people skills. I liked people. I liked communicating, and I also really loved science, and I loved understanding how things worked. I probably needed to be in a bit more of a fast-paced environment. And so as I progressed through engineering, I thought, well, maybe I would get into the business side of it. The sales side of engineering is very interesting, and you're working with people, and you still have to understand how products work, and you need that technical background. But I needed to feed that interest in, I needed a bit of a pace to what I was doing, and I wanted to be able to work with people. And I got lucky. I had a very nice, very senior patent lawyer here in Canada pull me aside, actually, one summer evening at a jazz festival, and said, "Look, Natalie, I know you're at the end of your electrical program. Have you thought about a career in patent law? It's very interesting. You're always looking at cutting edge technology. It would eventually probably require you to go to law school. But I think you have the right mix of skill sets to really make a go of this. And so maybe you want to explore, and instead of applying for these, sales positions with big engineering companies, what about applying for law firms that have really strong IP departments, and seeing if they need some help with a young electrical engineering graduate to help them with some of the patent files they're working on from a technical point of view." And I just sort of fell into it. I had no idea going through engineering that there was this career in patent law, and got very lucky with someone pulling me aside to say that this could be something of interest. So really fortunate. And that's something I'll speak to you a little bit later, but about mentorship and mentors and how important that is. And for women, it's not just about female mentors. I mean, a lot of great male mentors over my career that have really helped me a lot. So, mentorship really played a role in getting me to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you talk about somebody identifying the skills and maybe even the mindset that you had. So my next question is, what is the mindset? What are the skills of someone who's successful in your field? And I'm asking this question to give parents, teachers, school guidance counselors some kind of insight on the kind of personality that a child has and what works for them and could be a study or a career path for them.
There's a couple of things about curiosity. I think is certainly one. I mean, when you're in the science space, that and I love seeing that. And I have 3 children of my own, and I certainly see that. I have a few kids are, my son and one of my daughters are a little bit more on that curious end, and I can see them taking a career path in science. They love to understand how things work. They're asking me so many questions all the time. So that curiosity, that interest, and I really think that's going to be very important when we look at our curriculums and how we're teaching young people. We've got to feed that curiosity and allow children to go down that rabbit hole and do projects, get their hands dirty and, get into something. And if they're really interested in something, let them go into that. And I see that with kids today. They're, my son's able to pick some of the things he's interested in. There's a question he has, and he can make that a project and really dig into that. And I think that's really helpful, because in digging and starting to learn, you develop skills and you learn how things work and how to figure things out. And I think that problem solving, and that kind of that curiosity then leads to problem solving skills, which are really critical when you get into these domains. I mean, I think problem solving skills are critical across the board, but certainly in the engineering domain where you're trying to solve problems and create inventions, you need those skill sets. So curiosity is really important. And I think grit is huge. And there's been a lot of studies around personal grit and that mental toughness and to be able to persevere. I think one of the things, the engineering program, I think half the merit of an engineering program is all those sleepless nights and all those long days in the lab. The engineering program is it's 30 hours just of classroom time alone every week, and then you have, they say you've got 3 times more of that of work. And so I think the grind really helps you, hone a really strong work ethic. I think it's important to have a really good work ethic, and I think it's that mental toughness that really pushes you through. There's times when clients come to me and it's a very last minute situation, and we've got to push through some very tight timelines, and you can't let yourself get, too mentally focused on what you have ahead of you. You just sort of have to put your head down and do the best you can. And I think that's really critical. And for example, I wear my iron ring, my engineering iron ring, which I think is also, part of that kind of mental fortitude, pushing through, making sure that you realize that everything you do counts. And it's important to just persevere.
Amen. Hallelujah. We teach the kids this all the time in class. In fact, we actually embed failure lessons to give them exposure to failure and to teach them the importance of persevering. So I'm glad you bring that up. My next question is, what kind of professionals do you interact with in terms of the technology industry? Because obviously you have a background in tech and science, but you have to really deal with all kinds of different professionals.
Exactly. It's a really big spectrum. So I have to give your viewers a sense. I have clients across a spectrum. So I deal with medical doctors, for example. We just had a medical doctor come in yesterday, and virtually come in right now. One individual inventor who is the business owner, the inventor, he's everything, right up to, big multinational companies where I'm dealing with a patent lawyer on the other side. But I'm dealing with researchers. We have government clients. We represent, for example, Natural Resources Canada. So Natural Resources Canada is looking at innovative solutions across mining, forestry, oil and gas. So we're working with a lot of those PhD researchers and helping to mine and see, okay, what are you doing here? And what you're doing, what might we want to patent because it's going to have commercial value downstream. And some things we keep in the box and some things we really want to protect and get out there because we want to commercialize. We want to see products and services. So it's a whole spectrum. With the smaller companies, I spent a lot of time dealing with CEOs and sometimes the CFOs. So the heads of the companies, or even the financial heads of the companies, trying to explain, okay, with this strategy, business-wise, because a lot of decisions around whether you protect something or not, or what your IP strategy is going to be, is a business decision, and it should fit into your business strategy. You don't just go, you don't just go and patent everything in your company. You really have to thoughtfully think through what is going to be, what is giving me a competitive edge? What are my competitors going to copy? How are my competitors going to work around it? What kinds of things are my competitors protecting? So there's a lot that goes into it. And what might I want to keep as a trade secret? And what's easy to keep as a secret? So there are certain things that you do as a company you can't really keep secret. It's too fluid within the company. And then there's other things that, well, we're going to assign this as a trade secret, and so we're going to put processes in place, and that's part of the whole intellectual property strategic exercise. Is if we're going to label something as a trade secret, then we need to put some protection around that and have processes in place to do that. So it's a whole, so I've just spent a lot of time educating from the little inventor, that woman or that man that's come up with this great new idea, right up to CEO of a company, and trying to meld the IP strategy. It's got to be part of a business strategy. So it's not patenting in a vacuum. It's really understanding, why are you doing this? What kind of competitive edge is this going to give you? How are you going to be able to grow your business doing this?
Great. So what do you need to study to be a good IP and patent lawyer?
So I would say, if you're interested in a career in patents, if you want to go on the hard science side, I would say an engineering degree is really valuable. So having a background in electrical or computer engineering, mechanical engineering, one of those domains would be very helpful. There are some civil engineers as well, because there's a lot of inventions that go into, for example, building technology. And a lot of innovation now. We're trying to, obviously, we're dealing with climate change now. So of course, if you think about building technology, how are we going to withstand the climate changes? So a lot of inventions in that space. So for example, you look at all the engineering domains, biochemistry, any of those kind of undergraduate formations would lend itself well to you at least understanding. So you don't need a PhD to become a patent lawyer. A nice undergraduate formation would be good, because you understand now the language of the inventors. The key is to really understand what they're talking about. But every day, I can tell you, 20 years into this, even working with the same company over and over again, I have to learn. I have to spend time understanding exactly what they're doing, right down to sometimes the little details, to be able to advise them on how to protect it. So you're never going to stop learning. So I don't think some will advocate for maybe an advanced, a master's degree, but I think if you get an undergraduate degree in engineering, that will help you get into this career, or on the life science side, so on the pharmaceutical side, a science degree. On that side of it, there's often folks that recommend getting a master's, having some kind of advanced degree in maybe in pharmacy, pharmaceuticals, biochemistry. So if you're on the science side, an advanced degree can help you get a job. It can be a competitive marketplace out there. And then seek a position with an IP firm or with a company with an IP department. And then you train on the job. You train on the job, and then if you really like the career, you can marry that, I think, with a legal education, which can be very powerful. And even if you never really practice as much as a lawyer, having that kind of breadth of exposure, understanding the legal risks, can be very powerful. And so I would recommend that kind of a path.
I love that. Very specific, very helpful. So thank you. My question is, what other people in your field inspire you? We got to get the message out, especially to girls, kids of color, and kids from low-income background, that they have a seat at the table, and there's room for them and their perspectives and their talents. Are there any specific people that you can think of that you want to give a shout out to because they're so inspiring?
Uh, you know, I've been very concerned about the rate. I mean, there's a whole issue of course minorities also getting involved. I mean, I'm half Lebanese myself. Um, but the issue of women, I think, in science and engineering is still keeping me up at night. I mean, I was talking to the dean of my engineering school recently, and we still have, 10-15% of women in engineering. And it's very low numbers still in the electrical computer engineering side. And yet we know that career-wise, there's going to be so much advance in that space. I mean, that's where the jobs are going to be, and we need to get more women involved in that area of science. We have to do something about that. So I still am very focused on getting more women, getting more young girls in the space, making those environments more attractive for them. It is about the girls persevering and pushing ahead into those environments, and it's also about the men, being more open, shedding some of that unconscious bias, and getting more women on the team, because there are a lot of great women out there. So I'm so focused on that. So for me, I mean, over the years, Sheryl Sandberg and her book around Lean In, I mean, I found that really resonated with me. I mean, she talks about personal grit, and ladies, get, young girls, take your seat at the table. Take your seat at the table, and you have every right to be there. There's no boy job, girl job. You equally should be there. You're just as bright. And the more we see of each other in those spaces, the more of us will be in those spaces.
It becomes normal.
So
Yes.
it becomes normal, exactly. And we still see that. I mean, if you look at tech companies, there's still such a shortage of women, and we enough is enough in a sense, right? It's 2020. We really need more women in the space, and it is going to require perseverance. I am often, as a patent lawyer with an electrical background, I'm usually one of the only females, if not the only female in these meetings. Because as you say, who am I working with? I'm working with researchers in this space, working with CEOs in this space. It's predominantly men. So I think it's really important to be confident, take your place. You have every right to be there, and you can do it, and it's so rewarding. And I think and I've said this also, I'm being a little bit of a pioneer in the space. You have an ability to shine. I mean, one of the advantages I have is that I'm memorable because I'm one of the only females there. So you can use that, as an advantage in some senses. You're not going to be, blending in with the wallpaper. You're there.
Lights.
you're adding light. People want you there. I mean, men want women there, right? So we want a diverse table, and we want people from all different communities and backgrounds. We want everybody at the table. So if you're at that table, be proud of yourself and know that you're not going to blend in with the wallpaper, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. I'm part of the club. So there you go.
So, there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
and I think you have to own it. And we've got to teach that with our girls too, like, be confident, just take your seat. I also, oh my goodness, the former CTO with Facebook, I've been, he was actually an Ottawa boy. Oh my goodness, his name is now, Chamath Palihapitiya. I'm not saying his name properly, but he grew up in Ottawa, and actually he was formerly with Facebook, the real leader there. I mean, he's someone of Sri Lankan descent. He came to Canada as a refugee. He rose all the way to the ranks. I mean, he is another inspiring voice. And this guy's a guy with an engineering background, went to Waterloo, and is taking his seat at the table. So I think you just have to kind of grab onto some of those inspiring leaders out there, and just know you deserve to be there.
Love that. So true. And I'm going to hit you up for his contact if you have it, because he'd be a great person to also interview.
For sure.
So what advice would you give to kids who are passionate about the ethical side, the legal side of law and technology? And what can they do specifically to start getting the knowledge and the skills and the experience and exposure to this area?
So I think, in terms of early days, I would probably just start to kind of get educated on some of the issues. I mean, are you going after those news sources? Are you reading some of those interesting articles? Are you gauging with what your members of parliament are doing, or your leaders in government? Are you kind of following along with the current discourse? So I would say, it's important to obviously focus on, your education stream and your career stream, but, are you aware of where government policy is taking us? Where is the world going, and how might you contribute to that conversation too? What ideas might you bring to the table? One person can change, can make so many changes, can do so much. One person can have impact. And it's been, inspiring to see so many young people talk about issues around climate change and what we can do around technology, and sort of taking that, the bull by the horns, and really moving that forward. I'm very motivated to give back in ways around policy as well. So I've been involved with quite a few initiatives. I recently was advising the Ontario government on policy around commercialization. How can we do better around our intellectual property policy, and how can we really improve the scaling of companies within Canada? How do we secure our future, really? And so, giving the government ideas around that. How can we do better? Because we can always do better, right? So it's a never-ending question. But I think we can always look at asking ourselves, how do we make improvements here? And I think around climate change, it's going to come down to innovation, right? So we really want to spur innovation, and the patent system has been a very important system for that, in terms of encouraging innovation and sharing information. One of the differences, and one of the key things about the patent system, is that it gets ideas out there, right? They get published. They get published in the form of patent applications and patents, versus companies keeping things as trade secrets. And what happens with that publication is now somebody else can take a look at that and ask themselves, okay, that's their idea. Well, how do I build on that idea? I want to work around that. And so it motivates you to work around that idea. So I think that the system has a lot of advantages to it. How can we build on that and motivate young people? But I think the policy is going to be very important, and we need to bring everybody along. This is the other thing too. It can't just be the developed world moving ahead. And so we're going to have to figure out ways to bring everybody along and improve conditions for everyone. And I really do think technology can be powerful, can be a powerful accelerant for that. And so we're going to have to harness that, though, in very careful ways. And I think that it's going to be important for young people to voice their concerns. I think young people are the future, and they're going to get us through this, I think. So, absolutely, it's not just about hunkering down and coming up with solutions, but also making sure that those solutions are taking us in the right direction. And that's all about policy.
Absolutely.
So get informed.
Yeah, I think critical thinking is something that unfortunately we lack, and we see the repercussions of this in politics per se. I won't mention any countries, but I think it's really critical to actually teach kids these skills and to make them aware of what's going on in the world and engage them, because the worst thing is an apathetic population.
Well, that's just it, right? Feeling like you can't make a difference. And I won't buy into that. It sometimes gets very tiring, and this comes back to personal grit. It does take time. Governments are slow to move. Sometimes that's a good thing, because we don't necessarily want to move too quickly, but you have to persevere. And I think a lot of these young people are making headlines. They're making a difference. They're making people think. And one person can have a lot of impact. So you can have a lot of impact. I mean, if you're a young person listening to this, you can change the world, and don't let yourself think otherwise. So, become informed, and politics matters. It matters to scientists too. It affects everyone. And so it's important to look around you and see, okay, how can we make things better for everybody, and move, and making things better for everybody will make things better for you too. I mean, we don't need to, the business objectives don't need to be divorced from, community objectives and climate change mitigation objectives. This can all move in the same direction. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. Do you have anything else to say? Because you've said a lot to think about. And I think you've given us a really good idea of the passion and the knowledge and the skills and the inspiration that's needed in law and technology.
Well, thank you. I think if any of this resonates with any young person and they want to reach out for further conversation, I always take time. I love helping young people. We also take interns, and to the extent that a young person wants to have a further email exchange, for example, or get on a Zoom call with me and talk this through, I'm always happy to lend some time for that, or introduce them to someone that would be a great person for them to converse with. But keep up the great work. It's terrific what you're doing, and I think this is really going to make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And just for everyone to know, Natalie's based in Ottawa, Canada. So we have a lot of international followers too. So anyway, thank you so much, Natalie. And
thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about the work that you do.
Absolutely. We'll be keeping in touch.
Perfect. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.